Hey, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. It's going to be a good conversation tonight. So let's go.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here tonight. The way we do things on this channel is I give my opening remarks, then I follow with a roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. We find out who it is on the other side of the camera who is watching. Then from there, I answer your super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of the program, send me a super chat on YouTube or a Rumble rant on Rumble. That is the best way to reach me. And look, I'm here to answer your questions. In the second half of the show, it's all you. I know we're streaming now live on Facebook. We're streaming now live on YouTube, and on Rumble. So Rumble rants on Rumble and super chats here on the YouTube channel. And there's no way to send questions on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook and you want to ask me a question, go to YouTube or Rumble and send your question. Looking forward to our chat tonight. Now, quick reminder, we do have morning messages on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. We have morning messages. And those morning messages are a great way to start the day. You can start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism. Today, we had a great morning message from Timoshenko, a member of our group, Tim, out in Missouri. He gave a beautiful morning message. He read from Letter to Bob Avakian about materialism versus idealism. Great way to start the day. But we try to have one every single day. And it's on the CPI YouTube channel. And let me pull up the link where you can go and start your day. Because CPI, as I will get into tonight, it's actually quite related to what we're talking about tonight. CPI, we exist to hold each other up. And the happier we are, the more confident and strong we are, the more that we start our day and have an outlook in the world that is positive, why the better off all of us are. We're here to hold each other up. And so, start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. Every morning, we have a morning message as a way to support other people in our community. We try to have it from a different member of the organization every single day. And that is what gets me to the next part, which is we need people to record morning messages. We need you people to step up to the plate and record them. So we have this very nice link where you can upload a morning message very easily. And I would hope that there are people right now who like what we do on this YouTube channel that can take a minute to just read from one of our books or tell a personal story or sing us a song or do something to support our community, to support other people in our community. Please go to this link, record a short morning message, right? Because that's what we want to do as a group. We want to support each other. It's about holding each other up as a community. That is what we strive to do. So I just wanted folks to be aware of that. Morning messages every morning. Tune in every morning. And please make a morning message if you can. Great way to support other people from the community. Now, another thing, real quick, that I wanted to get out there while we're while we're here, I did want to let folks know that I'm going to be in Florida. I am going to be in Florida pretty soon. And I am going to be speaking along with John McCarthy at the upcoming Center for Political Innovation at the rally, that is happening coming up around the Uhuru case. And it's going to be good. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be an important event. And hold on, I thought I had the flyer in my email, but I will email it to myself. Hold on. I will pull up the flyer for the important Uhuru rally, because the Uhuru 3, their trial begins coming up. And the trial begins coming up on Tuesday. It's a very important case. They're essentially trying to outlaw anti-war activism. They're claiming that being an anti-war activist constitutes acting as a foreign agent. And the Uhuru 3 are on trial. And so prior to their trial, there is going to be a very big rally the weekend before on Saturday. And that rally is going to be held in St. Petersburg, Florida, at the Uhuru House, where they were raided. Hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Joseph Waller dropped the charges on the Uhuru 3. That'll be on Saturday, August 31st at 11 a.m. at the Uhuru House, 1245 18th Avenue, South St. Petersburg, Florida. So I'm going to be there. I'm taking a plane. I'm flying out. I'm leaving on Friday, and I'll be back on Wednesday. I'll be covering the trial, doing my best to interview people and do everything I can to support the Uhuru 3 defendants. And John McCarthy is going to be there as well. John is a beloved member of our organization, leader in Chicago, has done a lot of really hard work, and he's flying out as well. And we'll both be speaking at the rally representing the Center for Political Innovation. My understanding is that Tucker Carlson will be there at the courthouse. That Dr. Cornel West is going to be there at the courthouse. A lot of people are going to be at the courthouse on Tuesday, and Jill Stein and others are going to be at the rally on Saturday. It's going to be quite an event. And so we need to do everything we can to support the Uhuru 3, because they are trying to outlaw anti-war activism, and we need to support them as much as we can. So I am headed to Florida in the day after tomorrow, and I'll be speaking to the rally. I'll be at the courthouse on Tuesday, the day the trial begins, and we are going to do everything we can to stand with the Uhuru 3. Now, just a quick reminder, the way these streams work is I give my opening remarks. My opening remarks are followed by a roll call. And then after that, I answer your super chat questions or your Rumble rant questions. So if you have something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, shoot me a Rumble rant on Rumble or shoot me a super chat on YouTube. That's the best way to get my attention in the second half of the show. So on that note, folks, I'm going to talk about something that, I am at the point with CPI, the Center for Political Innovation. We are adjusting as an organization very dramatically, because we have to get the job done, and the ground around us is changing. And if we keep going the way we're going, we won't be up to the task. And we are carrying out some very dramatic adjustments in our organization. And one thing that I have learned is that sometimes when there is an issue that just keeps coming up, right? That just keeps being raised one way or another. It just keeps coming up. The best thing to do is just take it head on and just dive right into it. And this is an issue, and I guess, as there's been disagreements in the past, as there's been people that have struggled and been frustrated, this is an issue that has come up a number of times. And it's not just in the Center for Political Innovation that this has come up. It's in our wider circles. It's among anti-imperialists in general. An issue arises, and that issue is the question of normal. How do we reach normal people? Are we normal people? Should we strive to make ourselves more normal? Are we freaks? Are we weird? This is a whole issue that a lot of people get stuck on. And a lot of people get stuck on this issue. And there's a lot of problems among people that are anti-imperialist, among people that recognize that Russia is right in Ukraine and the NATO regime in Kiev is wrong, among people who realize that Taiwan is China, among people who sympathize with North Korea rather than South Korea, among people that realize that the U.S. invasion of Iraq was based on lies, that the destruction of Libya and the killing of Gaddafi was an atrocity, among people who realize that this global system of imperialism is holding back development around the world and that these wars are waged to protect big banks and oil companies. There is an ongoing identity crisis that a lot of us face, and we need to just face it head on. But it's not a simple thing. There are some attempts to give a simple answer to these questions, and when people attempt to give simple answers, it hurts them in the long run. And so we need to talk about this issue of normal. Are we normal? Do we want to be normal? How do we talk to normal people? What we need to address this issue head on. We need to just look it in the face and talk about it. Because I've seen a few people with great potential get stuck on this issue lately, and it has destroyed them politically. They have deteriorated into more or less living biologically over this issue. They get stuck on this issue. And I would say the bulk of anti-imperialists that get caught up in wokeism are also stuck on this issue in their own way, and they go in a bad direction. And that this is an issue that we just need to take on head on. So I'm going to start out by clarifying something. And I feel like this should be common sense, but it is not. And I'll just start out and say that as the founder of the Center for Political Innovation, as the ideological leader of the Center for Political Innovation, I want the best for you. I want you to have a happy life. I want you to have a good paying job. I want you to have a spouse that you care for. I want you to have a family that you get along with. I want you to have friends who you can rely on and trust. I want you to have a good, happy, comfortable life. I want you to be confident. I want you to love yourself and be proud of who you are. I want you to be an effective communicator. I want you to be able to win the respect of other people. I want you to achieve great things. I want all of those things for you. And why do I want those things for you? Well, first of all, I want them because I'm a nice guy and I have basic human empathy. And if there's anybody that I wish goodness towards, it's the people that are part of my community, right? I mean, if anybody that I have good wishes and well wishes for, it would be you all, right? But I should, in basic, morality, you want the best for everybody for the most part, but those you are close to, you're much more invested in them doing well. So I want the best for you. However, in addition to me wanting the best for you, I have another interest in it, which is the better you do, the better we do. The better of a person you are, if you have a good paying job and you have a stable life, you'll be able to be a much more productive, active member of our group. The more that you are able to effectively communicate with other people and maintain healthy friendships and relationships, why, the better of an organizer you'll be, and the better you will be at bringing people into our organization and recruiting people. The more that you are a respectable, admirable person, the more that you have achievements, the better our whole organization does. And so, in addition to just my basic human solidarity and well wishes towards you and my comradeship for you, it is in the interest of the Center for Political Innovation for you to do well. I want you to be confident. I want you to be successful. I want you to have love in your life. I want you to have meaningful relationships. I want you to have success at your job. I want you to excel in every possible way. I want that for you. Firstly, because I care about you and I'm a human being, but second of all, because it is in our organization's interest for you to have that. Now, why is it necessary for me to say that? Well, unfortunately, there are other types of movements and organizations and really fandoms that really don't want that for you. How is this related to the question of normal? It's related. We'll get to that, but bear with me. There are all kinds of movements and organizations that don't want that for you. Now, why don't they want that for you? Well, they don't want that for you because the way they are set up psychologically is to cultivate dependency. There are a number of organizations, and specifically a lot of internet fandoms, that are set up to cultivate people's dependency, to make you reliant on a certain social media influencer or a certain organization for your whole social circle, for your any self-esteem, for your livelihood. They're set up to make you reliant on them. And in order to do that, they don't want you to excel. They don't want you to succeed. They definitely don't want you to be confident. They want you to be under their thumb. And that basic dynamic that I'm describing here, I want the best for you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be strong and confident. I want the best for you. And some other people, for a variety of other reasons that are very self-serving, and on top of that are very non-productive, are not going to get us any closer toward defeating imperialism. They don't want that. And that needs to underlie this entire conversation. Because let's just face it, if you live in the United States of America in the year of 2024, and you are politically literate enough to have studied the Ukraine conflict to realize that Russia is right and the Kiev junta installed by the United States is wrong, you're not normal. And if you are somebody who has studied world history and come to the conclusion that Stalin was a good guy, you are not normal. And if you are somebody who has studied the history of the Korean Peninsula and thinks that Kim Il-sung and the Korean Workers' Party have done some good things, you are not normal. It is abnormal to be an anti-imperialist in an imperialist country. The bulk of the population is pretty tuned out of politics for the most part. And on top of that, the people who are political tend to be pro-imperialist in one way or another. Now, there's a growing section of the population that are skeptical. There's a growing section of the population that are alienated, that are highly distrustful, and that's a good sign in a way. But, I mean, I am not going to pretend that being an anti-imperialist in the center of an imperialist country and having anti-imperialist consciousness makes you normal. It's not. You are not normal. And that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Because normal people don't have Wikipedia pages. Normal people don't have world records in the Olympics. Normal people don't write books. Normal people don't travel around the world to important international gatherings. Normal people don't do a lot of the things that being part of this movement empowers you to do. Right? You are who you are because you are unique. You have seen the truth. You have been open enough to see the truth and learn the reality of the world around you. And that says a lot about you. It says that you are open-minded in a way that others are not. It says that you are knowledgeable and deeper thinking in ways that others may not be. It says that you've been exposed to certain realities and that you have life experiences that have opened you up to hearing certain perspectives that other people have not had. And none of that is an indictment of you. None of that makes you a bad person. In fact, all of those things are strong arguments in your favor. And I think that you're ahead of the curve if you can understand the way the world actually works. If you can understand the evils of American imperialism. Right? If you can understand the benefits of a rationally planned economy and socialism. I mean, not all of this is good. I think it's all very, very good. It shows that you're ahead of the game. If you were quote unquote normal, you wouldn't be able to enjoy these broadcasts. If you were quote unquote normal, you wouldn't be fun to talk to. I might get bored having conversations with you. So I don't really want you to be normal. And I'll talk more about that later on, about how I don't really want you to be normal. But the question is, what do we do with this realization that we are not normal? What do we do about it? That's the question. Because the standard way that leftists deal with this is something that I have actively fought against. In fact, the whole basis of our community and our organization, out of the movement to the masses, has been a rebellion against the standard way that leftists used to talk about this. Because the standard leftist approach is to condemn the society we live in, to condemn all the people around us as sheeple, as a bunch of complicit imperialists, white settler colonialists. We're bought into this evil system and think that you are somehow morally superior and feel condemnation and isolation from the society in which you live. That is the normal way that people respond to this. I'll give you an example. When I was around the Revolutionary Communist Party, right, we would encounter people when we were selling newspapers who would say, F you, and, get away from here, you commies. Why don't you move to some other country? And what we were told was, America is the most evil fucking country that has ever existed. This is the new Nazi Germany. These people go along with their government murdering people in Iraq and murdering people in Central America. And we don't fit in here. And it's an honor to be spit on by the American people because this is an evil fucking country and this is an imperialist hellhole. And we are the ones with the morality. We don't consider ourselves to be Americans. We burn the American flag. We take pride in our isolation. That is the mindset of the Weather Underground. That's the mindset of the Revolutionary Communist Party. That's the mindset of a lot of the woke left nowadays. America is an evil, racist, settler white country. America is a country founded on racism, and people who wave the flag and people who just live their lives are complicit in empire, and they're morally bad because they're not part of the woke movement, and they're going along with an evil system. But we, the enlightened few, we are the correct ones. We are morally good, and this country is going to fall apart and burn down, and we'll stand back and laugh and go, ha, 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 we knew it was evil all along. Yeah, burn with it, you evil, racist white settler. I mean, that is the Weather Underground mindset. That is the mindset of the new left of the 1960s and 70s. That is the mindset of wokeism. And that mindset is toxic. That mindset is toxic. That mindset is not helpful. And that mindset, it leads to depression and demoralization. It leads to hopelessness. It leads to all kinds of very, very bad things. It is not a healthy way of being. But it is the mindset that most of the left cultivates. Moral superiority, contempt for the society you live in, pessimism, negativity. And that ain't going to get us anywhere. I think that's not helpful. And that's going to lead us to be isolated. But what will that lead you to do if you think that way? It will lead you to separate, to more and more isolate yourself, to cut off your friends, to cut off your family, to be isolated alone on the internet, all by yourself. And I must say, a lot of social media cultivates this mindset because it's in their interest. They don't want you to go and have a healthy relationship with your friends, have a healthy relationship with your family, have a good job or anything like that. Well, if you do that, you're not home alone watching them. Right? I mean, they want you to cut off your parents or your friends and relatives because they're Trump supporters. Cut them off. They're racist. I'll never speak to them again. You support genocide. Your free speech is genocide. You're a Trump supporter. You know, they want you to cut off your leftist friends who disagree with you about the trans thing or disagree with you about this or that or don't use the right pronouns or whatever. Cut them off. I disavow. They want you to get in your smug, moral, self-righteous place and cut and cut and cut and isolate and isolate and isolate and condemn and condemn and condemn. So you're all by yourself and it's just you and your phone. And they've got you right where they want you. And you are consuming. You're consuming their content. And you're becoming more and more triggered by their content. You're feeling more and more scared, more and more threatened. You're more afraid of the world around you. You're more alienated from your neighbors. You're afraid of your neighbors. You're afraid of your family members. And you're just all by yourself. And you think the world isn't going anyplace. I don't want you to feel that way. That does not benefit me in any way, and it doesn't benefit the Center for Political Innovation in any way for you to feel that way. And the idea that we are the moral few, the idea that, oh, we want to celebrate our difference. I think there was a slogan, freaks are revolutionaries and revolutionaries are freaks. We don't want to be normal in this evil society. You know, that doesn't lead any place good. But it's very convenient for social media fandoms. Very convenient for them, right? They get to be the voice on the internet, the only one to really understand you, the only one who's there for you with your trauma. Right? I mean, that's why I pointed out that Stefan Molyneux, the right-wing commentator who appealed mainly to young white men, was not that different than woke people. Right? His program, which I listened to, and I had a debate with Stefan Molyneux, his program was really not that different than woke stuff. It wasn't that political. If you listened to his program, it was young men would call into the program to talk about their breakup with their girlfriend, to talk about the fight that they're having with their parents, to talk about something that happened in their life. And Stefan Molyneux, with his British Canadian accent, would talk about how you've been treated unfairly. You have trauma in your past. And I'm the one who understands it. And it's because you're a white man, and the world is out to get white men. And the world is just unfair to you, but I'm here for you. I care for you. I'm the one voice who understands you. So give me your money and cut off your friends and family and don't speak to them. Just listen to my program. Just buy my products and give yourself over to me. Because I'm the one who understands your trauma. I'm the one who understands your pain. That's Stefan Molyneux. Right? And, you know, I thought it was weird when I debated Stefan Molyneux. In his closing statement, he started talking about spanking. And I'm like, what in the world is this man talking about? Well, there's a reason he does that. That's a traumatic experience many young men go through, right? They were physically punished growing up, you know, they got the belt or whatever. And part of his manipulation is that these young men would call in and he would tell them about how they were abused, how they were victims, how no one understands them. They would relive a very traumatic, painful experience. And then he would say, it's because you're a white man. And it's because, and he would use it to attach himself to them and isolate them and control them. Now, what he was doing was aimed at young white men, but it's not that different than what a lot of queer-oriented social media does. It's not that different than what a lot of, people of color or gender and sexism and anti-patriarchy feminist material does. It's about activating your trauma, having you relive things in your life that went wrong, times that you were mistreated, times that you were unfairly, playing up that that's because no one understands you except the person who's trying to exploit you, and then telling you to give everything to the person who's trying to exploit you and isolate and be more and more triggered and more afraid of the world around you. It's a very, very nasty form of psychological manipulation. And this is largely how woke politics works, right? And it's very, very damaging because the person is not healing, right? The way you heal is you have better social relationships. You make friends in places you didn't think you could make friends with. You go into uncomfortable situations and you learn how to handle yourself. You develop more confidence, right? It's not helping the person in any way, but it's about getting the person attached to this kind of toxic social media influencer, triggering them and isolating them in a way that is very lucrative, and it's very sinister. And the person doesn't become stronger, and the person doesn't become better, and the person continues to think, yes, I'm different, I'm separate, I'm weird, I can't relate to anybody. And it's awful. It's absolutely awful what Stefan Molyneux does to young white men, what various feminist podcasts do to young women, what various LGBT-oriented material do to young trans people and young gay people. It is really abusive, and it is self-serving. It is self-serving, and it often kind of leads to a cycle of rage where they're, on the one hand, they're playing up these people's trauma and making them afraid of the world, making them feel isolated, make them feel hopeless. On the other hand, they're inciting them against somebody all the time. There's always some transphobe out there. There's always some racist, sexist white male out there. There's always some feminists that are out there oppressing white men. There's always some bad guy that you are supposed to rage against. So you're raging, and then you're feeling powerless and weak. It's a really, really toxic mindset. And I don't want to do that to you. That is not my goal on here. I do not want you to be in that state of mind. In fact, I want the opposite for you. I want you to have healthier relationships. I want you to have a better job and a better career. I want you to be less isolated. I want you to connect with other people better than you already do. I want you to improve and become a stronger person. That's what I want for you. And I'm not playing this game because I'm not building a fandom. I'm trying to build a real community to get some real stuff done, but we'll get to that. And that's the main way that the left kind of handles the fact that we're not, quote unquote, normal, right? Is that, that it plays up that idea. You're a special, isolated person. You're morally superior and all that. That's the main deviation in leftist politics. However, there is another deviation, and it's taken me a while to recognize it. It has taken me a while to recognize it, but I now see it for what it is. Right? And I first saw it when I was in the Workers' World Party and when I was friendly with people who were in the Communist Party. When I was in the Workers' World Party, our leader was a guy named Larry Holmes. And Larry Holmes was a normal guy. Larry Holmes, he watched football and baseball. He was fun to have a beer with. He could dance at parties. He was charming and all of that. And all the Workers' World Party people were always talking about how normal Larry is. Larry is so normal. Larry is just so normal. Larry, he drinks beer in bars, and, Larry watches football. And it took me a long time to realize that when these older communists who were very sincere and dedicated were telling me about how normal Larry was. Oh, our leader is just so normal. You have no idea how normal our leader is. What I was hearing from them was their own shame and insecurity about what I just pointed out, them realizing they're not normal. And for a long time, the leader of the Communist Party USA was a guy named Sam Webb. Sam Webb was a rather tall man, had a pot belly. He was from Connecticut, and he talked like this. I'm Sam Webb, leader of the Communist Party. And Communist Party USA members would also tell me the same thing. Our leader, Sam Webb, he is so normal. He is just so normal. I mean, he goes hunting and fishing on the weekends. He goes, hiking in the mountains, and he plays pool really well. And they just start going on and on about how normal he is. And what you were hearing when they would go on and on about how normal old Sam Webb was their insecurities about the fact that being a communist in America means you are not normal. And there are certain internet personalities now in the communist sphere that do the opposite, I guess, of what Stefan Molyneux does. They do the opposite of what a lot of the woke stuff does. They don't play up, oh, we're different, we're isolated, and we're persecuted. And they do the opposite. We are so normal. We are just normal, cool, healthy people. And what I'm telling you is that all of those people are weaponizing and manipulating the insecurities of a lot of people. And that's what they're doing. They know that there are a lot of people with communist views who think they're freaks, who think they'll never fit in, who think we're weird, that think we're nerds, that think and they are manipulating and weaponizing that insecurity in order to take advantage of people. Because I have seen it, and I've seen people who fall into this spell. I saw what happened in the Workers' World Party. I saw what happened in the Communist Party USA. Sam Webb was a Democrat. We're going to vote for the Democratic Party. We are going to vote for Al Gore. We're going to vote for John Kerry. We are just going to support the Democrats. That's what we're going to do. And these older people who really believed in communism, who had big stacks of books like this, would say, are you sure we got to vote for the Democrats? No, look, you're weird. You're a freak, but the normal people, they want to vote for the Democrats. So you need to just vote for the Democrats. The insecurity of these people about the fact that they were communists, about the fact they felt they didn't fit in anywhere, about the fact they didn't belong, was leveraged to control them. And I saw the same thing in the Workers' World Party. All the older people actually believed in communism. All the older people, why don't we have more classes on Lenin? Why don't we sing the Internationale at our meetings? Larry was, no. We're just going to do woke liberal rallies. See, I'm a normal guy. That's what the young people want. And people of color and the masses, they don't want to hear any of that communism crap. You're weird. That's why you want that, is because you're weird. You're weird. And the leader was upheld as this great paragon of normal, healthy person. And the leader hated the rank and file. And I'll tell you, I saw that. I remember I was someplace with Larry, and my jaw dropped. And I heard him start making fun of all the older members of the Workers' World Party. All the people who donated all their money to pay his paycheck, all the people that, really believed in his organization and had really read the books. I heard him just sinisterly make fun of them. They were a bunch of freaks. They were a bunch of weirdos, right? But we have to control them. And I got to realize how Larry really saw the members of his organization. And the fact that he was normal, quote unquote normal, was not an attribute. It made him a very ineffective leader of a group. The group basically functioned as a liberal protest club. The communist ideals and the beliefs that they held on to had long been forgotten. And their strategy was, whatever the latest trendy liberal cause is, go get a permit and set up a stage and have a protest around it. And it was a hustle that he had monetized, and money was coming in from different places. And these suckers, that's how he viewed the older people in the group who actually believed in his cause, were people that had to go along with it. And they all actually believed in communism. And he used their insecurities. And he used their feeling that they were not normal, their feeling that they were weird or whatever, and their admiration of our leader is just so normal. He used that to control them. And Sam Webb was the same way. Oh, Sam Webb, the leader of the Communist Party, he's so normal. He's so normal. And his response, if people said, maybe we shouldn't just campaign for the Democrats, maybe we should talk about communism. You're not normal, okay? I don't care. You got a bunch of books on Lenin and all that. Real people aren't like you. You're a freak. You're a weirdo. You're strange. People don't want that. Normal people support Barack Obama. We're going to do this, all right? We're not going to be weird. You want to be weird? You want to go join the Spartacist League? You want to be like a homeless man out there with a crazy sign? We don't do that here. You don't want to be a freak, do you? Do what we say. You don't want to be a freak. And that weaponizing the insecurity of these people that sincerely believed in communism, that sincerely had come to these conclusions, had given their life to it, weaponizing that in a cynical way, making people feel ashamed of it, making them feel that there was something wrong with them and that this person, this normal leader, was their superior. Larry, he's our superior. He's normal. Sam Webb, oh, he's better than us. He's normal. That was the way in which these people were manipulated into not doing what they believed in. They wanted the organization to be a communist party, but their insecurity was weaponized in order to prevent it from being such. Right? And that is really important because I am seeing that right now. And there are certain influencers that just go around, we're so normal. We're normal. Oh, yeah, we don't want to be freaks. We're normal. And it's funny because you look at their followers. Their followers are not normal. Their followers are not normal. Right? There was one of these people that actually began his speech at an event I was at. And he said, I'm so glad to see so many normal people in the audience. I looked out at the audience and I thought, there's no normal people here, right? It's probably a lot of people in this audience that are on the spectrum. There's a lot of people in this audience who have traveled internationally. There's a lot of people in this audience that consume alternative media, that are really educated about philosophy. I don't see any normal people at this event at all. That's how he began his speech. And I thought, is he looking at the same crowd that I'm looking at? Well, now I understand what he was doing. He was playing on the insecurity of all of those people in the audience. That's what he was doing. They were all there, and they all were probably thinking, oh, I'm the only person in here who's weird. I hope no one notices me. And the promise is, if you follow this influencer, if you follow them, you can be normal. They'll help you be normal. People will think you're normal if you follow this person. That's the promise. And I got to tell you, this person has the exact same attitude toward all of their fans. The exact same attitude. They're a bunch of freaks. They're a bunch of weirdos, people who read books about Russia, people who know the history of Marx and Lenin. What weirdos are that? And it's the same shit. And this is really the inverse of the other deviation. The one deviation is you're so weird, no one can ever understand you, and so you must follow me. And the other deviation is I'm normal, and deep down, you know you're not normal. You know you're a freak. You know you think about things, and so you better do what I say because I look normal and I'm better than you, and you better follow me, and you better do what I say, and you better, because I am the normal one, and through me, maybe I can help you to be normal, which is not going to happen. And these are both very sinister, cynical manipulations intended to make money. I'm just being real with you all. I didn't say tonight was going to be an easy night. I did not say tonight was going to be easy, that I was going to tell you all things you wanted to hear. I'm telling you that this is a sore point that a lot of us in anti-imperialist politics have. We have it in our head that we are not normal, and that there are bad actors who see that weakness and smell blood and use it to get us into manipulative fandoms and take advantage of us, right? And that's just a fact. I'm just telling you that this is going on. But now I have to tell you, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Because, I mean, this is not the first time we've ever had this conversation. I'm here to tell you you're not normal, and I don't want you to be normal. I want you to be exceptional. That's what I want for you. I want you to be exceptional. And I'll let me explain. All right, during the 1970s, there was a layer of thousands of people who became interested in communism. They were called the New Communist Movement. I talk about it in the CPI textbook. The Revolutionary Communist Party, the October League, the Communist Labor Party. It was a layer of people. And the main strategy that the New Communist Movement had is their members would get jobs in factories and try to be normal and try to just be an ordinary worker in the factory, know the most about baseball and football, go to the bar and drink with their workers, their co-workers, and it got to be funny. People made fun of how ridiculous these communist groups went with the "I want to be normal" shtick in the 1970s. There was a joke that, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the RCP, took this to the most ridiculous extremes. There's many stories where, there was a meeting of different communist groups. People are going around. What group are you from? I'm from the Workers' World Party. What group are you from? I'm from the Communist Party USA. And then you'd get to the RCP person. What group are you from? Well, I'm just an ordinary working man. That's right. And of course, these are generally people who went to Harvard and Yale. These are generally people that have stacks of the complete works of Lenin in their house. They're not, but they would put on a big show of being normal, and they would wear baseball caps with beer companies on them because that was a very working class thing to do. They would wear flannel shirts because that's what poor working class truck drivers wear, and it was kind of stupid. It was kind of stupid and over the top. But the idea was that they would become popular with their coworkers by being normal because they knew about sports or they knew about about beer or whatever. They would become popular with their coworkers in the plant, but then a crisis would happen in the plant, and then all the workers would rally around them to lead. Well, here's the thing, folks. Let's say that you had a very rare form of cancer. What would you want to cure you of the cancer? Would you want somebody who is just like you? Boy, I've got cancer. I've got a disease called cancer. I'm going to go find a guy in the bar who is just like me, who watches football. That'll cure me of the cancer. Of course not. You're going to want to find a doctor. In fact, you're probably going to want to find a specialist. You're not looking for a normal person to cure the cancer. You're looking for somebody who really knows the issue, someone who takes it very seriously. In the classroom, is the teacher the same as the kids in the classroom? Is the teacher the same? No. If the teacher was the same, they wouldn't have anything to teach the kids, now would they? When you go to the doctor, is the doctor that you see, are they the same as you? Do you have the same level of knowledge that they have? Did you go to medical school also? Of course not. When a crisis breaks out and people are looking to mobilize resistance, they're not going to go look for somebody who's just like them. They're going to go look for somebody who has something to offer them. Somebody who has something to teach them. Somebody who can help solve the problem. And this approach that the new communist movement had of we're going to sound like workers, it was an incorrect approach. And there was another organization that existed during these years called the National Caucus of Labor Committees. It was run by Lyndon LaRouche. They were calling themselves Marxists, but they were widely attacked by the new communist movement, by the Maoists. And one of the attacks against them is they said to them, why is all your literature always talking about fixing things in the country? Why is all your literature always talking about fixing things? Because it was true. They put forward proposals to fix things in the country. Infrastructure projects to revitalize the economy, financial bailouts and economic, programs, building a national bank. And they'd say, why is all of your newspaper, you're supposed to be communists, but your newspaper is all about how to save the country. Why are you trying to save the system? We shouldn't want to save the system. We should want it to all fall apart. We want a revolution. We want it to all fall. Why are you trying to save the Western imperialist system? Why are you trying to save this country? And LaRouche people explained, why would working people follow us if we were trying to make their lives worse? And that points to the difference between the old left, the Communist Party in the 1930s, and the new left. Right? Even though those Maoists were trying to model themselves on the Communist Party, if you go and read an old, you read Twilight of World Capitalism by William Z. Foster, right? This is a Communist Party book from the 1950s. There's nothing in here about destroying the country. And if you read what he talks about what socialism would be like, it's about making the country better. And the people from the National Caucus of Labor Committees were talking about making the country better. And their newspaper, New Solidarity, and their pamphlets and their literature always had all kinds of proposals about new high-speed railway that could be built, nuclear energy, national banking, different ways that they could take dramatic economic reforms to make life better in the country. And that was their approach. And they also didn't try to dumb themselves down. They didn't try to sound like they were just an ordinary person. They tried to sound like they were smart, like they knew what they were talking about. When I was in a communist group, I remember that the communist group I was in the Workers' World Party. They attacked the Service Employees International Union. They said this, the SEIU, this labor union. Why do they always have their labor union organizers wear suits? That is so bourgeois, and that is so anti-working class. When an SEIU organizer comes to knock on your door or comes to your workplace to handle a workplace grievance proceeding or whatever, they wear a suit. And that is just so anti-working class. Well, that was not correct. It is not anti-working class. Because, if you get arrested and you hire a lawyer to represent you in court, that lawyer is going to wear a suit. And if a member of someone who's running for city council knocks on your door and says, I'm running for city council, I'd like you to vote for me, they are going to wear a suit. And the labor unions that are much more successful than any of these little tiny communist groups have realized that if they want to look like an organization that can really help working class people, they have to look serious and they have to look professional. They have to look like somebody who will get the job done. And so that doesn't mean they put on flannels. It doesn't mean they put on beer hats. Oh, I'm an ordinary worker. No, it means they put on a suit and a tie and they look like professionals who will represent you well and get you, the deal that you need to represent you in your grievance proceeding, get you a contract that'll respect you on the job. They are not trying to look like they're just like you. They're trying to look like a professional who can get the job done. Right? And I don't want an organization of people that are normal. I want an organization of people that are exceptional or people that are extraordinary. That's what I want. I want a group of people that know more about world politics than most people. I want an organization of people that know more about economics than most people, but they are connected enough and they have the social skills and they have the understanding and the professionalism to explain things and educate people in an effective way. That's what I want. I want an organization full of people that people will look up to and they'll say they know their shit and they're representing us and they're pointing us in the right direction. That's what I want. I don't want an organization of normal people. I want an organization of people that are very effective, very articulate, very professional, very good at dealing with people, very good at communicating with people, very knowledgeable, but not know-it-all-ish, very, very tuned into the realities of life, very capable of engaging with people, very capable of listening and learning from the masses of people and understanding their perspective. I want all of that, and none of that is normal. None of that's normal. None of that is normal, and none of that comes naturally. None of that comes naturally, right? You don't naturally become a very effective organizer. You learn by doing. You don't naturally become really good at explaining Marxist economics. You learn by doing. You don't naturally become good at convincing people to oppose a war. You learn by doing. And part of learning is being able to speak to people in many different walks of life, being able to relate to people, being able to use terms that people can understand and frame things in a way people can get it. But that's not the same as being normal. In fact, that means that's being abnormal. That's being exceptional. You have to understand what you're saying, and you have to understand the person you're speaking to, and you have to understand them well enough and what you're saying well enough to communicate it in the most effective way. That's skill. Being able to do that well is exceptional, is extraordinary. It's not ordinary. And I'm telling you, the way that you will become that is by doing it. You have to just do it. Right? I am thankful for the fact that I joined communist groups because they made me go out on the street and sell newspapers to people. I was shy when I first did it. I was nervous. I was convinced that people were going to punch me in the face for being a communist. That's what I was convinced was going to be the case, but I got good at doing it by just doing it over and over and over again. And being a revolutionary is a journey of self-improvement. And you know what? I was with the Revolutionary Communist Party. I was around them. They taught me to sell newspapers, to go out on the street and sell newspapers. And then when I was in college, I ended up getting a job, from the alumni fund and calling up alumni and getting them to donate. And I was good at doing it because I had the sales experience of going out on the street for hours every Saturday and every Sunday and every day after class and selling the newspaper to people in real life. And in fact, when I first moved to New York, I got a job in sales, in marketing at an insurance firm. And I was very good at it. And why was I very good at it? I was good at it because in the communist movement, I had learned to go out and engage with people. And my skills improved. And that was good. But it improved because I went out and did it. Right? And I tell people that the communist movement saved my life. And it honestly did. If they hadn't given me the push and made me go out and hand out leaflets and made me go out and hand out posters and made me go out and sell newspapers and made me go out and sell books, if they hadn't done that, I never would have realized that I had the skill. I never would have developed it. And I never would have come out of my shell. And I never would have learned to explain these ideas. When I would read Marxist books, when I would learn new concepts, I'd be constantly thinking in my head, how could I explain this to my family members? How could I explain this to somebody at my college? How could I explain this to one of my coworkers? When I'm out leafleting about this, when somebody disagrees with me, what am I going to say back to them? And it was only by doing it that I got any better at this. And it is a great journey of self-improvement. But was I learning to be normal? No, I was not learning to be normal. I was definitely not learning to be normal. I was learning to be better at what I did. The older communists that I knew, Frances Dostal was an old woman. Her parents had been members of the Communist Party. She'd been a founding member of the Workers' World Party. She was from Brooklyn, New York, and she could talk to anyone. And she told me, being a communist means you have to be able to talk to anybody, Caleb. You got to be able to represent our line to anybody. And she could talk to anybody. And one of the first things she did whenever she met somebody was she asked them about their job. What do you do for a living? And she would listen to what they did for a living very carefully. And she later told me that I should do that whenever I met somebody. And she said, don't, ask anyone you meet. If you meet somebody, ask them about their job. And don't just do it to give them an opportunity to talk. Do it so that you know. Because if you are going to be an organizer of the working class, you need to know what a day in the life of a working class person is. You need to know what they do at their job every day, what their job is like. You need to know that. And if you're going to understand the economy, right? If you're going to understand the capitalist economy, you need to know what people are doing for work. So when you meet someone, ask them about their job, make them tell you what a day at their job is like, what a typical day is like, what a stressful day at their job is like, what an easy day at their job is like, whether the pay goes up, how their pay can go up. Find out everything you can, because it's not simply a matter of being interested in them to gain their trust or something like that. It's a matter of knowing it so that you can be an effective organizer. Because Marxism is about economics. It's about the economy. It's about the means of production. And your job is to know that. And so you need to be out there knowing what people have to say. And you need to be interested in what people do at their job. And you need to be knowledgeable about it, and you need to understand that. You need to be able to relate that. And you can incorporate that knowledge into your agitation. This is what they taught me. And this is brilliant. This has been amazingly helpful to me in learning to interact with people, in learning to engage with people, and learning to do marketing. And all of this is skills that I learned through being an activist, through being an organizer, through being in a group, by having people push me to do things I didn't think I was capable of doing, by having people teach me to engage with other people. This is all things that I was taught. And these are all things that have really helped me in every field of my life. I have better conversations with people because I was forced to go out and organize as a communist. I have better knowledge of ways to interact with people. I've learned to explain things in different ways. This is all really important. And it is the journey of self-improvement that all of us are on. Being a revolutionary organizer is a journey of self-improvement. It's not a journey to become normal. It's a journey about how to become extraordinary enough to relate and organize and influence normal people. That's what we're trying to do. It is about gaining the skills, the insights, the relatability to really be effective, to convey very important and sometimes very complex and very unfamiliar ideas to normal people. That is what we are trying to do. And we are aiming to be exceptional, not to be normal. And we are aiming to be the specialist that the masses go to when things become intolerable. I've often said that revolutionaries are a lot like dentists. Most people would never want to go to a dentist. They would never want to go to a dentist. They don't like the drill. It's gross. But you get that cavity that's so bad, you go and find a dentist. And when the crisis comes, that's us, folks. That's us. We have to be the dentist that the masses run to when conditions are intolerable. As things get worse, they go and find the revolutionary. They go and find the dentist who will get that cavity out. They go and find the revolutionary who they resisted. They said, no, I don't want to hear this. No, it can't be that bad. And no, communism can't be the answer. And they go and find that dentist and they say, you know what? You were right. You were right. I got to get the cavity out. You were right. We got to have a socialist revolution. And we got to be that person. And that person they run to is not going to be their favorite beer drinker. And that person that they run to is not going to be somebody who's just like them. That person they run to is going to be somebody who has shown them that they know their shit, has won their trust, has advocated on their behalf before, and won battles on their behalf before. That's who that person is going to be. And I want you to be that person. I want you to be the person in your neighborhood, in your workplace, in your family, in your university, who people will go to when they're angry and they're looking for answers. I want you to be that person. And being that person, that means you can't look crazy. You can't look like a lunatic. They're not going to go to a lunatic. It means you can't speak incoherently and sound like you're just saying things that are not useful to them. No, that means that you are going to have to win the trust of your coworkers, win the trust of your friends and your classmates, win the trust of the people in your neighborhood, win the trust of the people at your school, at your university, by being able to give them answers to their political questions, by putting forward solutions, not, oh, we need a violent revolution, but putting forward real solutions that make sense to them, to the problems that are facing their lives, a transitional program, a 4-point economic plan, being able to put forward something that they could see happening that would actually improve their lives. That's what you got to do. Right? You have got to learn to be exceptional. And to be exceptional in the way that you can engage with people and you can explain things and you can win them over. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for you. And there are people that are trying to weaponize your feelings of isolation. And there are people for a variety of reasons. There are people that are going to play on your insecurities. There are people that are going to try to isolate you into a fandom. I want you to be an organizer. And let me just put it this way. I keep coming back to this lately. There are 2 ways that I'm aware of that you can find happiness in this world. The first way is to have real friendship, to have real love, real connection with others. To have somebody that you're there for them when they're suffering. They're there for you when you're suffering. You make each other laugh. You hold each other up. To have that kind of bond with another person, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a family member, whether it's a good friend, whether it's someone you work with in an organization, to have the kind of bond with another person, to have love with another person. That is the first way that you can find happiness. And the second way you can find happiness is by creating, building something, inventing something, designing something, helping make something happen. That's the other way that you can find happiness. Putting on an event, writing something, singing a beautiful piece of music, making a beautiful work of art, teaching a group of people and helping them learn something, making a contribution to the world, creating, making the world better. That's the second way. The first way is to love, and the second is to create. Those are the 2 ways that you can find happiness. And I've got to tell you that the whole reason the Center for Political Innovation exists is to help you do those 2 things. To help you have people that you can work with, comrades that you can struggle with and organize with and develop a bond, have a similar interest in the politics and the history and the all this stuff we talk about on these streams. I want you to develop a bond with other people. And as an organization, we are all about creating. We put on events, conferences, weekend workshops. We have outreach projects that we do. We publish books. We are all about creating. We're here to give love, and we're here to come together to create. That is why we exist as an organization. We exist to help people find camaraderie, love, and connection. And we also exist to create. And to go out and create and engage in operations to educate and spread the anti-imperialist message. And so if you want to be part of our group will do its best to try and bring you happiness in these 2 ways. Now, I can't guarantee it will always go smoothly. People disagree with each other. People are not happy. People were looking for something and they didn't get it. People were unsatisfied. It happens. And that happens in any organization that you've ever been in. Every church, every bowling league, every sports club, everything. Right? People are unhappy. Sometimes. But our goal is to help you to find happiness and find satisfaction in life while promoting the worldview of anti-imperialism and innovationism that is the way to the future. And That is what we seek to do. We seek to facilitate that. So take it or leave it. That's what we offer. But one thing I will not do is I will not pretend that I'm going to try and make you normal. I will not exacerbate your insecurities about your perceived abnormality. And I will not try to tell you that somehow we are going to be normal. We're going to be exceptional in this organization. And my goal is for you to be as exceptional as possible in every aspect of your life. I want you to be the best, most successful person at your job. I want you to have a high income. I want you to have a great marriage and a great spouse. I want you to have really good friends that you can bond with. And the better you're doing, the better I'm doing. The happier you are, the happier our organization is. The more successful you are, the more successful our organization is. The more confident you are, the better outreach you're able to do as our organization. It is in my interest as the leader of the Center for Political Innovation for you to do well. You are on a journey of self-improvement, trying to find a life with more love in it, trying to find a life with more creativity in it. And I view the Center for Political Innovation as an organization that can help you do those things. And if you want to come along, feel free. And people have their hardships. People have to step away. People have to come back. But I'm warning you, and this has come up a lot recently, watch out for anybody who is playing on your insecurities and playing on your fears of not being normal, or points to being normal as some kind of ideal, or worse, tries to isolate you and tell you you'll never fit in or whatever. Watch out for that, because there's a lot of vampires out there. There's a lot of vampires out there who want to tear you down. They want to tear you down. And I'm telling you that CPI ain't going to work unless we build you up. We are here to build you up. We are not here to tear you down. And if this is going to work, we're going to build you up. And I'm here because I got built up. I got built up. The communist groups I was in, as much as I was frustrated and disappointed with them, they built me up. And I am the product of people who taught me. I am the product of people who nudged me. I am the product of people who pressured me to do things I didn't want to do, who told me I had to do things I didn't want to do, who challenged me intellectually, who pushed me into uncomfortable circumstances. And as weird as it is, I appreciate it. There are things I would never do as an organization that were done to me, and you know what? I'm better off for it. Right? I was sent out on the street to sell newspapers when I was underage. You got to be 18 to be in CPI. That's one of our basic rules. But when I was 15 years old, they had me out on the street selling communist newspapers. That's probably illegal. Right? We didn't get to keep the money, I'll tell you that much. And, we weren't getting paid, and I was underage. That was probably illegal. So what? I'm glad they did it. It saved my life. And I do want to point something out too. Right? And this is something that it's weird for people to, this is a weird one. Right? But, in Greek, there are three words for love. There's agape, right, which is like the love of knowledge, the love of God and man. That's the one that people always talk about. There's eros, which is romantic love. That's where the word erotic comes from. Sexual or romantic love is eros. But there's also philos, or filial love, right? Now, what does the word filial mean? This is an important word, right? Because it's a really important word in Asian cultures, right? It is the filial is the love due from a son or daughter. right? The word filial refers to the love that a son or daughter has for their parent. But filial love is not only between biological parents and biological children, right? In Asian cultures, they really emphasize the concept of filial piety to teachers, filial piety between the people of a country and their leaders of the country. And it is a love that develops out of admiration. It is a humility. When we talk about filialness, it is a humility and a love for those leading you. And it is love from those leading you to those they are leading. It is the love that a king has for the nation. It is the love that a father has for his children. It is the love that students have for their teacher. It refers to a relationship between leaders and led that is a healthy one, that has obligations that go both ways. And I would say the ultimate filial relationship is love between God, our creator, and man. And that my ability to keep going in life and my ability to march forward in life really improved when I returned to God, when I could love God again, when I could look up at God the way a child looks up at their parent, and I could love God again, and I could take God's leadership. It really improved things for me. And that as a young man, it was very hard. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Malcolm X, and this didn't happen. It was something made up for the movie, right? But in the movie Malcolm X, one of the hard things about Malcolm X in the movie is that when he's a Muslim, he has to pray. He has to get on his knees and pray, and he's just too proud to do it. Well, that didn't happen because the Nation of Islam doesn't do salat. They don't pray the way Muslims normally pray. So that never happened. But they put it in the movie because it's something that a lot of people can relate to, right? Especially a lot of young men can relate to. You don't want to bow before anybody. You don't want to look up to anyone as your leader. You want to show that you're tough. You want to show that nobody can kick you around. You want to be the boss. And that's an important part of Oedipal feelings. It's an important part of going out on your own. That's an important part of asserting your independence from your parents and proving your way in the world. And those feelings are necessary, but you can't do that your whole life. And it's a burden that you have to carry around. Young men especially. It might be that way for women too. I think there's a lot of women that have similar feelings, but for men that I know, they carry this burden on their shoulder. They carry a bag of bricks around on their shoulder everywhere because they cannot be filial. They cannot have a parent or a teacher or a father figure. They cannot have a God in heaven that they look up to. They have to be all on their own, and they have to show everybody that no one can listen, that they've got something to prove. And I'm telling you, you will get to a point in your life where you can put that bag of bricks down. And when you can do that, and you can say, you know what, I have the humility to be led. I want to please my teacher, and my teacher wants to teach me. I want to please God, and God wants me to do the best that I can. When you can get to that point, when you can have filial love again, you will be much happier and you will be a much better organizer. And that is the first step toward becoming a leader. To really be a leader, you have to know how to be led. It sounds like a contradiction, but it's true. If you want to be a leader, you have to let yourself be led. And you have to be led by others. And you have to see what a real leader can offer. And you have to understand what it's like to not be the leader and to know what you need from a leader. I think Jesus in the Bible, he said, whoever wants to be first should make himself last and serve others. And that is true. If you want to be first, make yourself last. And this is something, and maybe what I'm saying right now, you just think, hey, Caleb, you're rambling on there and all that. That's fine. Maybe you're not ready to hear this, but I am telling you that when you can have filial love, not erotic love, not, but filial love, when you can have filial love, when you can take leadership from God, when you can take leadership from a teacher or a mentor, and you can want to please them, and they can want to bring out the best in you, and you can have a positive leader and led relationship. If you can experience that, it'll be like a ton of bricks are lifted off your shoulder. And you will be so relieved if you can do that. I am telling you, if you can take the burden of having to prove something, of showing that you know it all and nobody can listen to you and you should be the one who's in charge, and if you can take that burden off your shoulders, you can be a much happier person. And it may not seem that way. And if it doesn't seem that way, you're not ready yet. And you can only do it when you're ready. You can't fake it. But when you're ready to really take that burden off your shoulders and to just have the kind of relationship that Socrates had with his students, that Jesus had with his disciples, that great revolutionary leaders had with their revolutionary organizations, to have the kind of relationship that Mao had with the people who went with him on the Long March, to have the kind of relationship that Fidel Castro had with the men who went with him on that ship, the Grandma, and went into Cuba, right? That ship that they launched their uprising with. To have that kind of relationship, the leader and the led, when you can have that kind of relationship, you will be happy. When I was in Iran, I saw the supreme leader of Iran speak. And, and I saw the supreme leader of Iran speak, and the way people spoke when he walked into the room, they started crying as soon as he walked into the room, and his presence in the room, it just hit them. And the same for Kim Il-sung. I never went to North Korea. There was a friend of mine who went to North Korea in the 1980s. And he described how he was at a factory. They took him to a factory on the day that Kim Il-sung, the leader of the Korean Revolution, visited the factory. And, Korea, culturally, the people are very expressive with their emotions, right? Different cultures are different. And when Kim Il-sung came to the factory, the tears just poured from the faces of working class people. They just cried in love for Kim Il-sung. Right? That is a kind of love. That's filial love. He is their leader who led them against the imperialists, who led them against Japan, who led them against U.S. imperialism, who oversaw the industrialization of the country. And when Kim Il-sung walked into their factory, people just sobbed. They just cried. They just cried. That is a special relationship. When I was in Russia, I saw that kind of relationship with Putin. The way when he walks into the room, and the way people look at him, and the way they listen attentively when he speaks, and the way they smile as he speaks, they have a filial relationship. This is a really big thing in Eastern culture. They talk about filial piety and all of that. We've gotten away from that in the West. We've gotten away from that. And you say, oh, if you think that way, you're in a cult. This is totalitarianism. You're being brainwashed. Well, that's great. And look at us here in the West. We're all thinking for ourselves, right? And there is no truth. And we're all sitting at home on our phones being triggered by Stefan Molyneux or some commentator, and there's no God for us to bow before, and there's no leader who's mobilizing us to build the country and make things better, and there's no one challenging us to do better, and we're just sitting there looking at our phones going, oh yeah, I'm doing great, I'm just doing great, I'm just so happy here in the West, right? With all of our opioids and all of our pornography and our pessimism and our we're all just a cancer on Mother Earth, and we're thinking for ourselves. Oh, we're thinking for ourselves. Nobody's telling us how to think. We're doing our own thing, and we're just so happy. We're just so great and free here in the West, aren't we? I mean, no filial piety, no cause to believe in, no truth, no sacrifice, no working hard to please a leader. No, none of this. Oh no, we're just fit as a fucking fiddle, as they say. We are fit as a fucking fiddle. We're just doing great here in the West. Well, I'm telling you, I've talked about the Freudian concept of parental transference. Now I'm talking about the Eastern concept of filial piety. But I'm telling you that we are missing something as a society. We are missing something. We are missing something. But I hope, amid everything that I just said for the last 90 minutes, that you understand why it is that I don't want you to be normal, and I want you to have a healthier relationship. A healthier relationship with this concept of normal people and normality. And on that note, folks, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? We got Johnny in Kansas City. We got Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. We got Jenny in Cincinnati. Welcome, Jenny. We got Bob in Troy, New York. Welcome. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. We got Denver in Minnesota. Ryan in Kansas City. Joe in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. Actually, Denver, Colorado. Mosin. Patch in Arizona. Krasnodar. Alex in Brazil. Carolina. Stanislawa stuck in Berlin. Thanks as always, Neil Fraser. You're out in Hong Kong. Great. Laura in San Antonio, Texas. Ellie in Sacramento. St. David's, Bermuda. China, the seasoned noob. Chris in Salt Lake City. Rachel in Wyndham, Georgia. Anthony in Detroit. Very, very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. All right. Names and locations. Names and locations. We got Gabby in Chicago. Eric in Lockhart, Texas. Kay in New Orleans. Kieran from London Town. Caleb W.N. Okay. Caleb W.N. Very, very good. JDL in Missouri. Welcome. Watching from San Diego. I like your book collection. Well, thank you. I like my book collection as well. I got some good texts here. Every time I move, I lose a bunch of books though. So, I don't know why. I don't know where they go, but every time I move, there's like a couple books that end up missing. JDL is in Missouri. Hightor is in Brazil. W in Polish is pronounced V. Got it. names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Anybody else? Names and locations. Twilly willy wick, boom boom. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right. So we have 2 super chats that have come in. And we have, do we have any Rumble rants? I don't see any Rumble rants. So I am going to kindly urge you to send super chats, because that gives me something to talk about in the second half of the show. And it'd be an awful short second half of the show if I don't have questions. People asked great questions last night, got me talking. So do the same thing again tonight, please. Get me talking. Please get me talking. And while you are thinking of your questions, your super chats, your Rumble rants that you want me to ask, I am going to put on some music. So I think that this song that I'm going to put on is actually about, it's kind of a sweet song I heard somewhere, and it's kind of about people struggling to find a place to belong. So I'm going to put it on.
I have been wandering all over this world, looking for something I just couldn't find it. Seems like I'm moving in search of myself. Where will I find my peace of mind? My peace of mind. All the lands that I love, all seas that I sail, miles of years all by me. It's been such a lonely trail. Find me welcome. Find me your welcome. Felt deep in my soul. I will find it in the city of gold. People so friendly, I know I won't meet. My heart's pouring open. Please take it for keeps. Take it for keeps. All the lands that I love, all seas that I sail, can't compare to you now. My heart is in your hands. I love's creating a world full of hope. Faces are glowing in the fresh morning sun. Children are laughing, all races are one. Father is laughing, a new life's begun. New life's begun. All the lands that I love, all seas that I sail, I'll fulfill this moment. Oh, we've come home to your love. All the lands that I love, all the seas that I sail, I'll fulfill this moment. Oh, we've come home to your love.
So there you go. All right. So I have one more super chat that's come in from Gala, and that's good. So I'll answer all 3 of them. And if people have any Rumble rants, Rumble rants are also appreciated. But if you have any more super chats, I'm here to answer your questions. So let's start out. We have 3 super chats. First one, is Ireland an anti-imperialist aligned country? Unfortunately, no, it is not. At this point, Ireland, for the most part, aligns with U.S. imperialism. I mean, they demonize Russia, they demonize China, they demonize Iran. I will say, though, that on the issue of Palestine, Ireland is pretty consistently critical of Israel and pretty pro-Palestine. And that is unique, but that is related to the history of the oppression of the Irish people and occupation and all of that. And that, from what I understand, Venezuela and Ireland have a decent relationship. That the Sinn Féin, which is the pretty big political party in Ireland, Northern Ireland, as well as the Republic of Ireland, Sinn Féin is particularly pro-Palestine and particularly friendly to Venezuela. So much so they actually send representatives to Maduro's, to his, to his inaugurations. So they are more anti-imperialist than most Western countries, and they are a colonized country. Let me put it that way. They're an oppressed country. Even though the Republic of Ireland is technically independent, the 6 counties are still occupied. They're still, part of, the British United Kingdom, and then, the Republic of Ireland is basically a colony of the British or of the German and French bankers and others. It may not be under the dominion of the British, but it's not an independent economy. It's not a socialist or anti-imperialist state. But they have a history of anti-colonial and anti-imperialist struggles in Northern Ireland and in all of Ireland. And that even the Constitution of the Irish Free State does have like socialistic stuff in it because of the fact that the struggle for Irish independence was so heavily stamped by Marxism, right? They never had a socialist revolution. The Republic of Ireland is not a socialist country. It's not really an anti-imperialist country. It's, kind of an outpost of German and British and French imperialism at this point. But it's an independent country. But even, the Republic of Ireland, if you actually read its constitution, because James Connolly was such an important leader of the Irish national liberation struggle. Because of that, there's no question that socialism left a stamp. I think if you read, what does the Irish Constitution say? All right, let's go read the Irish Constitution. Irish Constitution. What does it say? The Constitution of Ireland, right? It has like oddly socialistic language in it, right? This is the text of the Irish Constitution. It's got all these amendments, right? The Constitution of Ireland. This is the amending acts. I don't want the amending acts. I want the, right. In the name of the most holy Trinity, from whom is all authority and for whom as our final ends, all actions, both men and states are referred, we, the people of Eire, humbly acknowledging our obligations to the divine Lord Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through the centuries of trial, gratefully remembering their heroic and unremitting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation, and seeking to promote the common good with due observance of prudence, justice, and charity, so that the dignity and freedom of the individual may be assured, true social order attained, and the unity of the country restored, and concord established with other nations, do hereby enact ourselves the Constitution. The Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefensible, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government and determine its relations with other nations, and to develop its life, political, economic, and cultural in according with our own genius and traditions. It is the entitlement and the birthright of every person born on the island of Ireland, which includes its islands and seas, to be part of the Irish nation. That is the entitlement of all persons otherwise qualified in accordance with the law of the citizens of Ireland. Furthermore, the Irish nation cherishes its special affinity with people of Irish ancestry, that would be me, living abroad, who share its cultural identity and heritage. It is the firm will of the Irish nation in harmony and friendship to unite all the people who share the territory of the island of Ireland in all the diversity of their identities and traditions, recognizing that united Ireland shall be brought about only by peaceful means with the consent of the majority of the people democratically expressed in both jurisdictions in the island. Until then, the laws enacted by the Parliament established by this Constitution shall have the like area and extent of the application as laws enacted by the Parliament that existed immediately before the coming into operation of this Constitution. Institutions with executive powers and functions that are shared between those jurisdictions may be established by their respective responsible authorities for stated purposes and may exercise powers and functions in respect of all or any part of the island. There you go. That is the Irish Constitution. So there we go. Heavily influenced by the socialist movement at the time. James Connolly was a leader of the Irish National Liberation Movement, the Irish Independence Movement, very much a socialist. His doctrine on the national question was very similar to Lenin, where he was for national liberation in the context of socialism, right? Marxists generally rejected all nationalism. It was just the workers and the bosses, but James Connolly had the unique, the Leninist kind of understanding that we fight for the liberation of a nation in the struggle for socialism. So there we go. All right. What's your opinion of Joseph Braun's Tito? Well, generally, I don't have a very positive view of Tito. I mean, I think he was a leader of a socialist country, socialist Yugoslavia. He fought the Nazis. That's very admirable. He oversaw the development of socialism in Yugoslavia, built a strong economy in Yugoslavia, and he kind of pioneered the kind of mixed economy that China adopted. Deng Xiaoping was heavily influenced by Tito. Tito enacted what he called worker self-management, where basically, so in the Soviet Union, the factories, the industries, the way they worked is you got a wage. You went to the factory, you worked, and you got your paycheck, and you went home, right? And the factories were nationalized, and they produced according to a central plan. There was Stakhanovism, where if you worked really hard, you might get a reward if you worked extra hours, etc. But the factories were nationalized. But the farms in the Soviet Union, the collective farm system was different. In the collective farms, they didn't get a wage from the government. In the collective farm, they produced as much as they could, and they sold it to the government. The government bought, if it was a strawberry farm, the Soviet government bought the strawberries. So the more strawberries you produced, the more money the collective farmers got. Right? The more tomatoes they grew, the more money they got, right? And the collective farm was paid for the products by the state. That was the way the collective farms worked. And in addition to collective farms in the Soviet Union, you also had state farms that were just like factories where people just got paid. What Tito did was during the 1950s, he adjusted the economy of Yugoslavia so that the factories were like collective farms. That's my understanding, at least, is that the factories were like collective farms. If it was a tire factory, the government bought the tires from the factory, and the workers got a share of all the tires that were sold to the government. Right? If it was a car factory, the government bought the cars and the workers got paid for how many cars the government bought. Right? It was, and it was, they called it, they made it sound like it was more socialistic, was the idea, right? The workers are the owners of the factory and they get paid for how much they produce. But it was pointed out that division, it played up the national rivalries because some regions were more productive than others, but all the workers paid in to the healthcare fund, all the workers paid for the nationalities or for the infrastructure, etc. But then your factory got paid based on how productive it was, and some regions were more productive. And when they broke apart Yugoslavia, it was the economic differences between the factories, between the regions that were key in dividing socialist Yugoslavia. That is my understanding. So that, but my main critique of Tito, that model of like worker self-management, I'm not against it. I think that socialism is constantly adjusting. There's different ways of running a socialist economy. And, that's one thing. But my main critique of Tito is he aligned with U.S. imperialism. He supported the United States in the Korean War. He supported, he was against the Soviet Union. He was anti-communist. He was, he betrayed Stalin. He took aid from the United States and was, militarily aligned with the United States. And I don't don't think that was particularly admirable, right? You know, I mean, I think Albania's position of being solidly anti-imperialist was much more admirable, and that, you know, I do think imperialism is the main enemy, and I think when Tito, you know, Yugoslavia became the first socialist country to align against the Soviet Union, and before the Sino-Soviet split and before any of those divisions, the first one to go was Tito, and I think that was a big mistake. I think that that was opportunistic. That's not to say maybe Stalin did bad things to Yugoslavia. Maybe Stalin mistreated socialist Yugoslavia. I don't know. But regardless, there should have been a way that they could still be on the Soviet Union's side and, you know, raise whatever their criticism was. Which, to be fair, Fidel Castro and Kim Il-sung, both of them very widely criticized the Soviet Union. Both of them maintained relations with China. Now, there were rocky parts. During the 70s, relations between Cuba and China and North Korea and China were strained. But for the most part, they were able to maintain a relationship with China and the Soviet Union. They were able to raise criticism of the Soviet Union, but not turn against the Soviet Union, not align against the Soviet Union. And that was a much more principled stand, right? That there were people within the socialist camp who could criticize the Soviet Union for its flaws, for different things that they didn't like about it, but still not align with U.S. imperialism, still maintain an economic relationship with the Soviet Union. I think that was the correct position. Fidel Castro and Kim Il-sung, they were able to criticize the Soviet Union, but they didn't go into the U.S. camp. Yugoslavia went into the U.S. camp. 1948, Yugoslavia cut off the Soviet Union and aligned with the USA, despite being a communist country. And I don't think that was principled. I don't think that was correct. So, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've read a lot of the Albanian side of this argument. Enver Hoxha, the leader of socialist Albania, was, you know, he was one of the big voices of anti-revisionism. After the death of Stalin, he opposed Khrushchev, he aligned with China, and then he denounced China after the death of Mao. He had denounced Deng Xiaoping. And so I have read a lot of Yugoslavia criticism from the Albanian side. So maybe there's another side to it. But generally, that is my understanding of Tito. I see him as not playing a good role. All right. Yay to Caleb for encouraging people to be strange. I've always liked a little bit weird, but in a good kind of way. Well, you know, this is another aspect of this. There is no such thing as normal. Everyone is abnormal in some way, okay? There is nobody who is just completely normal, right? You know, if you really get to know that, think of the person in your life that you think is the most normal, the most plastic, if you really get to know them, there's something off about them, right? Maybe they like an obscure type of music. Maybe they really like some weird foods. Maybe, you know, there's something about them, okay? And that is just a reality. You know, it's just a reality. And, you know, nobody is normal. Okay, there's something weird about everybody. But I will say this also. You know, one of the most interesting people I have ever met. I was talking about him today with a comrade. Shout out if you're watching. Shout out if you're watching, the comrade. You know who you are, who I talked about this with. You know, one person that I had the honor of knowing, I think he's still living, was Mike Gimbel. Mike Gimbel was a member of the Workers' World Party, and Mike Gimbel was a sports genius, right? And I mean, you can Google Mike Gimbel baseball, right? And you will find, right, like on ESPN, the rise and fall of Mike Gimbel, right? He was a brilliant sports statistician. This guy had no college degree, but he was really into baseball, and he was a brilliant sports statistician. And he made a career working for the New York Knicks and for baseball teams. He published books about sports statistics that were groundbreaking. He was a math genius, right? He was also a member of the Workers' World Party. Like, he'd been in the Workers' World Party very early on. Both of his parents had been in the Communist Party, and his older brother had been in the Communist Party, and he joined the Workers' World Party. And he was with them from the early 60s, onward. And he is a reptile enthusiast. He is the only person in New York City history who has ever been arrested for owning a live alligator. Okay? So he's a math genius and sports statistician. He is a communist, a Marxite, Trotskyite communist. He is the only person in New York City history to have ever been arrested for owning a live alligator. And he got kicked out of the Workers' World Party when I was in it because he wrote a book about physics. All right? Mike Gimbel wrote a book about physics where he argues that he basically rejects the new physics. He argues that Einsteinian physics is not correct. I know nothing about physics, okay? You're talking to me. I know nothing about physics. He says there's no Big Bang, there's no entropy, and that modern physics, or what they call the new physics, is a hoax, right? Now, I know nothing about physics, but it was through reading his book that I actually learned that there are many communists around the world who think this, right? There are many communists around the world that think the same thing. I would never have guessed that. I would never have guessed that in a million years. But if you go to China, if you go to Africa, if you go to India, there are a lot of communists in various parts of the world who reject the new physics. And he's not the only person who rejects the new physics. There's a book called The Big Bang Never Happened by Dr. Eric Lerner. Dr. Eric Lerner is a Marxist, a follower of Rosa Luxemburg, and he maintains that the Big Bang never happened, and that that the Big Bang is a fraud, that entropy is a fraud, and that the new physics is a hoax. Now, I know nothing about physics. I took a physics class in college and I dropped it because I just couldn't follow it. I wasn't doing it. So I am not qualified to take a position on this at all. But what I will say is that, he and Dr. Eric Lerner both maintain, they take a very strong position that what they call the new physics is a hoax. So, I think about Mike Gimbel. What about Mike Gimbel? Great guy, brilliant sports statistician, famous sports statistician, reptile enthusiast, communist, writer, right? He's very happily married. I met his wife, very nice person. I think he lives in Pennsylvania, and he and his wife collect reptiles. Is he strange? Sure, right? Sure. Is it normal to love reptiles? No. Is it normal to be a math genius? No. Is it normal to write books about physics? No. Is it normal to be a communist? No. So he is probably the most not normal person that I know, but I think about him, very successful person, right? I mean, despite not having a college degree, he paid his bills by being a mathematics genius and running sports statistics for the New York Knicks. Very happy marriage, has a happy life. He's retired. He collects reptiles with his wife. He used to live in Harlem, and that's where he was arrested for owning a live alligator. Well, now he lives in Pennsylvania, and he and his wife are very happy, and they collect reptiles together. I'm sure there are things in his life that he's not happy about. I'm sure, he and his spouse probably have occasional arguments. I don't know. I don't know them that well. I'm sure there are things about him that would probably, just like anybody else, there are things that don't make you happy. But he's a strange person, but he's very happy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a person like Mike Gimbel. I think people like him kind of make life more interesting. I don't feel like I was encouraging people to be strange. I was pointing out that if you are a communist in America, you're already kind of not normal. And this is something we have to deal with. But we don't want to be normal. We want to be exceptional. We want to, and that this is a weird psychological thing that a lot of communists have to deal with. But to be fair, I think people that are quote unquote strange are what make life interesting, right? I think about a lot of great writers, they're strange. You think a lot of really smart people, they're strange, right? You know, and that, you know, you need people that deviate from the norm to have interesting stuff. So, I mean, you know, and in the past, I've brought up Mike Gimbel before to be like, to point out, you know, and that's one thing that I have been disappointed about communists is that there's always, when I would meet communists, you know, there's always some way that they're not part of mainstream American society. They all went to Harvard, or they all, you know, have an uncle who's on Broadway or in Hollywood, or they're all part of this kind of bohemian whatever. And that's a problem, right? Because it makes it difficult for them to relate to people, right? But then the tradition that I grew up with was that one should always be fighting to be able to relate to people more effectively. One should always be talking to as many people as you can and learning to engage with people and learning to talk to people, learning from people about their jobs, etc. So yes, we may be people that are, strange, I guess. We may be people that are in more intellectually engaging spaces, but we aim to influence the bulk of the population. We aim to relate to the bulk of the population. We aim to speak in a language that speaks to the concerns of the bulk of the population. We're not distant elites. But we're not dumbing ourselves down trying to be normal. We're trying to be effective organizers, right? And that was the whole point of my opening spiel. All righty. Thoughts on Kit Clarenberg's theory that the UK was behind the Kursk attack to prolong the war, and the US is mad because they wanted to wind it down. I would like to hear more about Kit's theory about that. What evidence does he point to for it? I think there is certainly a possibility that could be the case. One thing that I think is certainly true is that when you speak of the US, though, I mean, it's very clear that Biden and Harris, they have one orientation on Ukraine, and the bulk of the Republican Party has the other. And that's really clear. And Trump is right now leaning very hard into people that take the other position. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, he's hugging the shit out of them and he's embracing them. And that leads me to believe that Trump is really leaning hard. So to say the US, the USA is quite broad. The Biden-Harris administration are hostile to Russia as much as possible. Does that mean, though, they wanted to wind down the war, maybe just for electoral purposes? Excuse me. Is it possible they wanted to wind down the war just because there's an election coming up and the UK wouldn't go along with that? I don't know. I will say that I would view the United States, it's almost like you have the bulk of the domestic US population, Trump, America First, the lower level capitalists. But the Eastern establishment is also called the Anglo-American establishment. And I almost see the, what do you call it? The liberals, the Council on Foreign Relations is almost an extension of Britain, right? How many of those people were Rhodes Scholars, right? Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. The Council on Foreign Relations, almost all those people were in the Rhodes Scholar Program. That's a scholarship program that was set up with the estate of Cecil Rhodes. It explicitly says that they grant scholarships to people to study in Britain in order to learn the ideals of the British Empire. It's pretty blatant about what it is. And I almost see the Eastern establishment or the foreign policy establishment in the United States as kind of an extension of Britain. Right. So, I see Biden and Harris. It's not, I kind of doubt that they would have a different policy when it comes to Ukraine. Trump certainly would. But I find it difficult to think that like Biden and Harris and Keir Starmer have a different policy on Ukraine, and that Biden and Harris wanted to wind down, and the Kursk incursion was started by was started by Keir Starmer against what Biden and Harris wanted. I find that to be a stretch. That seems like a stretch to me, because I see Biden and Harris as kind of an extension of the British managerial bourgeoisie, right? You know, the World Economic Forum, all of these Malthusian ideas, these are all very, very British. Very, very, very British. So there you go. But yeah. But if anybody has any more super chats, you know, please, by all means, send them in, or speak now and forever hold your peace. I'm getting tired. It's after midnight. But I am here to answer your questions. So if you have any more super chat questions you want to throw my way, now would be the time to do it. I told y'all I am headed to Florida on Friday to support the Uhuru defendants. This is the flyer, once again, for the upcoming Uhuru court date. The rally is on Saturday. I'm going to be speaking at the rally along with John McCarthy, our beloved member and leader in Chicago. It's going to be great. You know, I'm supporting the Uhuru case. I guess if anyone has any more super chats, send them in now. I'm going to show our video clip on the Uhuru case. I think that would be appropriate to show. I've showed it on here before, but I will show it again because the Uhuru case is really, really important.
After the rioting was done, U.S. media kind of forgot about those communities. Well, Uhuru, they went out there because they saw black and brown people like themselves that were out there protesting and rioting, and they stayed there. And they've been there since 2014, providing services in the community, giving these young people in the community something constructive to do, not just go out and break shit to raise awareness about the conditions they're in, but ways to actually feed people and serve the community. And they've been there in St. Louis since 2014 doing constructive work. They have really escalated these programs. They have a farmer's market. They provide classes and services to pregnant mothers, and in particular in St. Louis, Missouri, and in St. Petersburg, Florida. They're trying to undo the damage that the U.S. Department of Justice and the state police and the local police and all the forces have been doing in communities like Ferguson, Missouri. And at the same time that they've done this community work, the African People's Socialist Party has also taken a firm anti-imperialist stance. They support China. They support Russia. They support Cuba. They support Iran. And when the United States started piling weapons into Kiev, they defended Russia's right to intervene.
This defensive war in Ukraine that Russia is actually waging against world colonial powers, not Ukraine as a single entity, but the U.S. and all colonial powers who have an interest in colonially dominating African people right here in this country and around the world and extracting resources from the majority of peoples on the planet. That system, this current system, is in severe crisis, and they cannot rule in the same old way.
Because of that, their homes were raided. Then months later, the federal government came out with an indictment, and it's charging them with being Russian agents. And it's trying to allege that the election campaign that they ran in St. Petersburg, Florida, was somehow interference in the U.S. electoral process.
4 activists associated with the People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and the African People's Socialist Party have been indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice. The indictment from the U.S. Department of Justice accuses them of spreading Russian propaganda and cites simply some web conferences that they had, some Zoom meetings, some emails they sent out, as well as the fact that they have run routine election campaigns. Is this of concern to the Secretary General as an attack on human rights, freedom of assembly, etc.?
I frankly was not aware of the case before you mentioned it. Let me look into it and I will get back to you.
What's going on in Africa is directly connected to what's going on here. What's going on in Ukraine is connected to what's going on in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? It's an international global economy that's all connected.
Because they go to conferences in Russia, this constitutes Russian meddling in the elections. The whole thing is ridiculous. It's completely, utterly ridiculous. They've been running these campaigns for years, since before I was born. Back in the 1970s, they were running people for office. Their platform of reparations, I mean, Marianne Williamson, she's a major Democrat candidate. She also says she believes in reparations. I mean, it's not a unique message that they have in that sense, but they have been targeted because they're doing what you're supposed to do. I mean, you know, at all of our meetings, we have a picture of Fred Hampton up on the stage because Fred Hampton, he built a free breakfast program. He organized what he called a rainbow coalition, uniting low-income people, white, black, brown, Arab, Latino into one organization, trying to build up community empowerment, trying to do community service projects while teaching Marxism and socialism. We look at Fred Hampton as a great example of the American revolutionary tradition. And, the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, they don't like that we wave the American flag. They don't like that we consider ourselves patriotic. They have their own kind of unique analysis. They talk about what they call the colonial mode of production. That's not traditional Marxist thinking. And we don't agree with them on a number of issues, but it doesn't matter. We support them.
We all have to stand up and oppose the ideology of division and support an ideology of unity based upon our material interests, to work together.
People who can't understand that, people who can't get past, this or that, we got to put aside our differences and say that if they come for them, they come for all of us. If they go after them, they got to deal with all of us. That needs to be the attitude among anti-imperialists.
Yeah. So there actually was a couple Rumble rants that came in from Soccer Papa. He sent 2 in. So the first one is, can you please shed some light on social chauvinism in layman's terms? What is it? A friend of mine was telling me that it's a precursor to fascism and more dangerous than racism. Thanks. That's the first one. Well, chauvinism is thinking that you're better, right? That's, cultural chauvinism is you think your culture is better. Male chauvinism is thinking men are better than women. National chauvinism is thinking that your nation or your country is better than other countries. So social chauvinism, I assume, would refer to, thinking that, I think it's referring to your nationality or your country is better. Or I think it refers to socialists, right? The socialist movement, that is chauvinistic, right? It's like Lenin talking about social imperialism, social chauvinists, right? And that refers to the wing of the socialist movement that sold out and supported World War I. That's what it refers to, and that, there are many people who bring up Lenin's writing about the socialist parties that sold out and supported World War I and use that to try and say we should never wave an American flag. No, the issue wasn't that they waved a flag. The issue was they supported a war. And all the socialists who are triggered by the flags support sending weapons to Ukraine. So you're just wrong there. There's a lot that Lenin wrote about people who speak in the name of socialism, but support their country sending workers off to die, are supporters of colonialism and imperialism. That's what Lenin is referring to in his critique of the Second International. He talks about the social imperialists, the social traitors, the social chauvinists. That's what he's referring to generally. And that is social democracy. That is the labor aristocracy, the aristocracy of labor. That the Marxist movement became dominated by corrupt labor union bosses. That's the labor bureaucracy, as well as the high-paid skilled trades that benefited from imperialism and looked down on other workers. Those are the aristocracy of labor. And that's what the term refers to, that sections of the working class were bought off by imperialism. And the defining aspect of our time is the demolition of the aristocracy of labor. They're getting rid of the labor aristocracy right now. They are shrinking it. The skilled, good paying jobs that used to exist just don't exist as they once did. But Lenin's writings where he talks about social chauvinism and all of that, I don't know. A lot of people that just get triggered by the American flag. Look, let me just say this. Loving your country is just as natural as loving your spouse, loving your family members, loving your community. And that the fact that loving your country, not agreeing with your country's policies, not glossing over with your country's atrocities, but just loving your country is a big taboo in socialist spaces. So it shows something's really, really wrong. Something is really, really wrong, right? We love our country. That's why we oppose the wars, because the wars are bad for the country. We love our country. That's why, we don't want it to be part of this global imperialist system. And when Lenin is talking about social chauvinists or social imperialists, he's talking about people that supported imperialism in the name of socialism, or supported the wars in the name of socialism. You're not talking about people who loved their country or waved a flag. And I would encourage you to go read Lenin's essay about great Russian, great Russian patriotism, and how they, even though he considered the Russian Empire to be what he called a prison house of nations, even still, he was patriotic to the Russian Empire, to Great Russia. Go and read Lenin's essay where he says that we are loyal to Russia. Great Russian patriotism, right? Lenin on the national pride of great Russians, right? Referring to greater Russia, not just Russia, but also the other nations. Great Russian patriotism, the national pride of the great Russians. Lenin says they love their homeland. So it is not patriotism that is the problem. It is supporting imperialism, supporting wars, being on the same side as your boss. That is the issue, okay? And I think that that's where there's a big point of disagreement. And I see that Soccer Papa sent a follow-up. Is that an Akek stone ring from Iran on your hand? I believe it's from Yemen originally, but it is an Akek stone, right? This is Shia Muslim men wear these rings, and I think they're very cool. And when I was in Iran, all the religious men were wearing Akek stones, and so I started wearing one as well. And the story behind the Akek stone is the Prophet Muhammad, when they conquered the temple at Mecca, and they smashed all the idols and made it a statue to the temple to the one true God. The Prophet Muhammad kept a piece of one of the idols on his finger as a trophy of that victory, the victory of Islam over the pagan temple at Mecca. And I thought that was a neat story. And then that combines with what I've read about, idol smashers in the work of Thomas Carlyle and others. And so I find that to be very neat. And so on that basis, I started wearing this. It's part of my identity is, the prophet comes to the earth to smash the idols. And that, what Thomas Carlyle writes is that why is it that all the great prophets smash idols? Moses smashed idols. Jeremiah smashes idols. Moses, the prophet Muhammad smashes idols. What is it about prophets smashing idols? Well, the thing is that, do we really believe that ancient human beings were stupid? That they really thought they could carve a piece of wood in their backyard and make it God? Of course not. Right? Do they really believe they could make a piece of stone, they could worship it, and that would be God? No. The idols were originally erected as symbols of higher truths and principles. But as the generations went on, routine developed, where people were just going through the routine. And the truth that the idols stood for went away. And you got a dull routine, a dull ritual of worshiping the idol. So the prophet is sent to earth by God to smash the idol in order to reconnect man with the higher truth that the idols once stood for. When I read that in Thomas Carlyle's great book, Heroes, Hero Worship, and the Heroic in History, I was deeply moved. I was shaken by it because that spoke to me, because I don't care for dull routines, for arbitrary rules and all of that. I am striving to find truth, and I boil with passion at injustice. I boil with passion about truth, and that I see my role in some cases as a builder. I'm someone who's all about building. I do see my role sometimes in order to build and reconnect man with higher truths. You must smash the idols. Right. And when I read that in Thomas Carlyle's writing, I was very, very moved by it. Thomas Carlyle is a great writer, the Scottish intellectual in the 1800s who wrote about the French Revolution, and he wrote about heroism and such. And, I find Thomas Carlyle's writing to be very inspiring. And so that passage on the smashing of idols, and then the story of the Akek ring and the Prophet Muhammad smashing idols, and then from there learning that Dr. Sun Yat-sen, his first revolutionary act, the founder of modern China, before there was Mao, there was Dr. Sun Yat-sen, his first act was smashing idols. That all was very inspiring to me. You know, and that you know, that you know, I am a person who finds it very, very hard to engage in idolatry. You know, when I see a falsehood that we are all supposed to pretend is true, I have a really hard time doing it. You know, my life would be a lot easier if I was able to just mouth the falsehoods of our society, but I'm incapable of doing it. And really, the whole way I started on this journey was I was told that communism had failed everywhere it had ever been tried. And I learned that that was bullshit. The Soviet Union had huge economic successes. China has had huge economic successes. There's many great examples of socialist planned economies. And so everyone was just mouthing this thing about communism. Oh, it just never worked anywhere. And that was an idol. That was a false idol that everyone was supposed to bow before. Capitalism. Capitalism is the greatest system. Oh, capitalism is amazing. And communism just doesn't work. Oh, it just never worked anywhere. And I couldn't bow before that false idol. That God we were told to bow before, the God of the free market, was a false God. It was a false idol. And I just couldn't bring myself to bow before it. And I was furious to see everyone I knew bowing before this God, in a lot of cases out of fear, right? I had college professors who knew the Soviet Union had economic achievements, but they didn't want to talk about that because then someone might think they were a communist, and then they could lose their job. And so we'll just talk about the famine that went on, and everyone will see that we hate communism, and then we can move. And I don't go for that. I really don't. I have a hard time bowing before the false gods of our system, right? And that there are so many obvious lies underlying U.S. foreign policy. You know, I mean, so many obvious lies. Iraq had no weapons of mass destruction. Gaddafi was not, raping women with Viagra. And I mean, there's just so many examples of how U.S. foreign policy and the narrative of U.S. imperialism is based on lies and false idols that, I identify. And part of, as a revolutionary, I identify, it's really interesting. I come at things from many different angles, but, I have been much more religious in the last couple of years than I've been before. I've been talking a lot about the prophet Jeremiah, and I think the prophet Jeremiah is a great example of a revolutionary. And he is in ancient Israel, and he sees that the poor are being exploited, and he sees that the rich are engaging in human sacrifices, and he sees that the country is coming apart, and so he speaks up. Right. And he forms a movement of people who go around saying we've got to return to the moral principles on which the kingdom of Israel is founded. Right. We've got to go back to our founding principles. We got to follow the Torah. We can't be engaging in human sacrifices. We can't be exploiting people for slave labor. We've got to take care of the widows and orphans. And if we don't do this, our nation will be defeated by Babylon. Right? We're going to be colonized. We won't have the national unity to defeat our enemy. We have to go back to our principles. And at first, he's promoted. And one of the kings, there's a division in the ruling class. And one of the kings really likes him. And so the prophet Jeremiah builds a mass movement. But then a new king comes in, and the new king doesn't like him. And the new king likes the sex orgies and the worshiping of the idols. And so he throws Jeremiah in jail, or he puts Jeremiah in the stocks and has people throw fruits at him. And the prophet Jeremiah is a revolutionary, and he's standing up for social justice. He's standing up for the poor, the orphans, the widows, against forced labor. And he's calling out the decadent rich and their human sacrifices and their evil practices. And, he's building a mass movement for social justice, and he's taking advantage of a division in the ruling class, and he's facing persecution. But ultimately, he's saying that if our country doesn't repent, it will be destroyed. And he's right. He's proven right. Right. At the end of his life, Babylon conquered Israel. And he fled to Egypt. And the book of Jeremiah in the Bible is a transcription of his poems. He had these epic poems he would recite for people, right? And there was the scribe who wrote them all down. And that's what the book of Jeremiah is. It's largely poems. It's the poems, the poetic preaching of the prophet Jeremiah, condemning the decadent rich, condemning the exploitation of the poor and the disregarding of the poor people and their needs, and calling on the nation to repent, and building a mass movement of people in the kingdom of Israel to repent from the evil ways so the nation can be saved. And I look at the prophet Jeremiah and I think, this is a revolutionary, right? I mean, in that time, that was the way people expressed themselves, right? I mean, he built a mass movement saying, I am a prophet of God. I have a message, right? And there were other prophets who didn't like him. And he says they were false prophets, right? And he fought with the false prophets. But Jeremiah built a mass movement speaking as a prophet of God in the name of justice, right? And if you look at that, I mean, nowadays, somebody wouldn't build a mass movement on the basis of being a prophet of God. They would build a mass movement in the name of social justice. But in ancient Israel at the time, the way to be a revolutionary who stood up for the poor, stood up for the oppressed, stood up for the widows and the orphans, stood against the rich and their human sacrifices and their slave labor to build their mansions and all that, was to be a prophet. Right. And that's what Jeremiah was. He was a prophet. And I look at Jeremiah and I say he was an agitator. He was a mass organizer. He was Joe Hill. He was Gus Hall. He was William Z. Foster. That's what the prophet Jeremiah was. He was an agitator. He was a communist organizer. He built a poor people's movement, right? He built an unemployment council of all those people that had been made homeless by the decadent rich, and he mobilized them. And he had a popular front with the king of Israel, who wanted to control the idle rich. And so they had a popular front alliance. I mean, it's all there, right? You read the book of Jeremiah. What we're doing now and what communists have been doing is what Jeremiah was doing. It was done in mystical religious language because that's the way things were expressed at that time. And I would argue that there is a spiritual aspect to what we are doing, and that the communist movement in the 20th century was very atheistic and such, and that weakened it, right? And that I mean, back then there was no science. Everything was expressed in spiritual terms. So it was just natural for him to be, God is speaking through me, I'm a prophet. Okay. Well, nowadays, in the 20th century, no one would ever dare say anything like that. They throw you in the loony bin, right? There's no spiritual anything. Well, we're finding a balance, right? Until the end of feudalism and the rise of the Enlightenment and all that, everything was done in the name of religion. And then you had the rise of the Enlightenment and all of that. And then, you had the ultra science period, the triumph of reason and all of that. It was only in the name of science, only in the name. Well, now we're starting to find a middle ground. Man is a spiritual being, but man is also a material being. We have a body and we have a soul, right? And that some things have to be done materially. Economics, you cannot build an economy on spirituality. You need empirical data about economics, right? But on matters of passion, what people are willing to go out and sacrifice and fight for, that is a very spiritual question. And that's my critique. If you read my letter to Bob Avakian, which the morning message this morning was Timoshenko reading from it, that's what I point out, is that Bob Avakian, despite being very, 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 very materialist, claiming to be, he makes a very spiritual appeal, right? And that communists, largely one of our problems is that we are in denial about the spirituality that underlies a lot of our work, and so it becomes misplaced. Our spirituality is misplaced, and because we don't acknowledge that it exists, it's pure materialism, and so the spirituality comes out in unhealthy ways. And this is it's basic, right? If you have sexual urges that you're not aware of, they're going to come out in unhealthy ways. If you have rage and anger that is in your subconscious that you're not aware of, it's going to come out in unhealthy ways, right? That you need to delve into your subconscious and become aware of your feelings so that you can let them come out in a natural and healthy way. But when you suppress feelings and you stuff them back into your subconscious mind, they're going to come out somehow, right? Let's say that you really, really have an anger at your mother, right? A lot of us do, right? Right? Let's say that you and your mother just always tore you down, but you love your mother. And your mother is such an important part of your life. You're not aware of that lingering anger that you have at your mother. Well, that anger is going to come out. You're going to meet somebody in your real life who reminds you of your mother or says something really mild that might remind you of something your mother said, and you're going to blow up at that person. Why? Because you're not aware of those feelings that you have, though, whatever that anger that you have at your mother. Let's say your mother tore you down, right? Let's say, I don't know, let's say that you, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say you were really bad at playing the flute. You played the flute really badly. And your mother was a verbally abusive person who said to you, you suck at playing the flute. You suck at playing the flute. And they just said that to you every day. And you have anger at your mother for saying that. But you love your mother. And your mother is an important thing. So you don't acknowledge that anger. You're like, how dare she talk that way to me? And so you stuff that anger at your mother about playing the flute. And so, years later, you're with your girlfriend. And your girlfriend is looking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I know, let's go to a flute concert. And then you get really angry. And you get really angry at your girlfriend. And suddenly you're having an argument with your girlfriend because everything she's doing is annoying you. Well, what's really going on there is your girlfriend triggered that memory in your mind of being denigrated because you were bad at playing the flute. And you haven't acknowledged that that anger exists. And so your girlfriend said something about flutes, and that connected to that memory you have of your mother tearing you down because you couldn't play the flute very well. And so suddenly your girlfriend is going to remind you of that verbally abusive mother you had. And then suddenly a lot of anger is going to come out in very unhealthy ways. But if you sit down and you realize, you know what, I have a huge amount of anger because my mother was always telling me I was really bad at playing the flute and she was unfair to me. Then you can be with your girlfriend and she can say, let's go to a flute concert, and you won't get angry, right? And if that is the psychoanalytic understanding, right, is that we have an unconscious mind, and that unconscious mind, contains a lot of feelings and memories, sadness, fears, anxieties, anger that we suppress, and that we can become healthier people if we start to acknowledge what is driving us. Why are we motivated? What are we trying to prove? What is it? And that we examine, you think what are your passions in life? What are you really passionate about? Right? What do you really like to do? Why? Ask yourself why, right? And you really examine your motivations. What really annoys you in this world? What are things that really get under your skin? What really do you like, right? If you start hearing people talk a certain way, and what makes you feel very close to them, and just examine your subconscious mind and the associations that you have, the transference, the libidinal feelings, the Oedipal feelings, the trauma, the memories. You work through that and you come to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Right? And I would argue that in order to do serious political work, you need to do some psychoanalytic work. You need to dig into your subconscious. You need to dig into your subconscious motivations, right? You need to, because those feelings will come out if you don't acknowledge them. And if you don't acknowledge them, they'll come out in a very unhealthy way, right? I mean, the classic example is people who are gay, people who have homosexual feelings, and they suppress it. And then it comes out in really weird, unhealthy ways, right? Classic example, somebody's gay or somebody is straight, but they have a gay attraction that they've suppressed. They have some homosexual desires. And then suddenly they get a crush on a male movie star or a male political figure, a male movie star. Somebody comes into their life who's a man and they're attracted to them. But they can't just acknowledge, oh, I've got a little bit of a homosexual desire for this person. I'm not gay, so whatever. But they would never acknowledge they have any homosexual feelings. So they can't acknowledge what's going on. And so suddenly They become obsessed with this person. They'll do everything they can. What it really is that they just have a little bit of a homosexual crush. That's all that's going on. And if they had the health to go, oh, yeah, I'm a straight male, but, I find this man to be attractive. I guess maybe I'm like 5% bisexual or something. And I find that guy to be attractive. And that's what's going on here. It would be fine. But because they are so busy suppressing and they won't acknowledge that they have any such homosexual feelings, those feelings come out as they don't acknowledge them, and they develop a weird, unhealthy obsession with this person, or maybe they get really angry whenever they see this person because it makes them nervous, like they might be gay, right? And this is a really common thing. I've seen this in many, many people, right? And they talk about the homophobic person who's really, really, insecure in their own sexuality. But it's not just that, right? Is that, a lot of people have anger that they don't want to acknowledge. A lot of people have fears they don't want to acknowledge. That's a really common one, right? You have a fear that you just can't say to yourself, you know what? I am afraid of this happening. You can't say that, right? It's just the fear just seems so irrational or whatever, you suppress it. And so it comes out in weird ways, right? There are people who are afraid of flying on airplanes, but don't acknowledge it. And so right before they get on an airplane, they start like fantasizing about their own deaths. This is a common one, right? And you ask them, are you afraid of flying? They say, no, I'm not afraid of flying. I have no fear of flying. Well, actually they do, but they've suppressed their fear of flying so deep that, right before they get on a plane, they're like imagining their own funeral. And they're like, what's going on here? Well, what it really is they're just a little bit nervous about getting on a plane. They've seen videos of plane crashes. They're a little bit nervous, but yet they start imagining their own funeral. No, if they just acknowledge, okay, I've got a little bit of a fear of flying, then they're going to stop doing weird things in their head before they get on a plane. This is the Freudian psychoanalytical approach. And I think there's a lot to it. And I really appreciate Ruben Osborne's work, Freud and Marx, A Dialectical Study. That's very good. I also like The Psychology of Reaction, which is the book I'm reading now. Very, very good. Right. And I feel like in order to be a political organizer, you need to do some psychoanalytic work. You need to you need to know what makes you angry. You need to know what your weaknesses are. What kind of attachments, you need to be aware of your own subconscious biases. You need to be aware of it. Because if you don't know your subconscious biases, you can have a response to situations and you can react in ways that are unpredictable to you. Your feelings will surprise you. Get to the point where your feelings don't surprise you anymore. You know where your feelings are coming from. You know why you're having your feelings, and that will enable you to deal with high stress situations in a much more chill way, in a much more calm and collected way. Right? I think, and that, just be aware of your own impulses and your own subconscious drives. All right. Well, listen, folks, it's been fun. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to put on the closing music. Good night.
Upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.